But with the help of Hashem, we are learning PESACHIM Daf Kuf Yud Aleph. We left off on Daf Kuf Yud all the way in the bottom of the Amud by the last line. We are concluding the sugya of zugos. We're going to be learning what happens if a person consumed something in two, in an even number. What else do they need to consume to take them out of the odd, out of the even? If they drink something in the even number, what do they have to consume or eat that will take them out of the even into the odd? It has to be something that is like, that is similar, as we'll be learning. And on Daf Kuf Yud Aleph, all the way in the top, we're going to start learning about many other actions that if a person engages in them, the person is making himself open to, he's exposing himself or herself, weiter to harm in the hands of demons. We're going to speak about calling out demons by their name. We're going to speak about how demons hang out in the shade. They like the shade of palm trees. They like the shade of the moon. And therefore, don't invade their territory. That is where you're really going to take them off. Be careful. We're going to learn how the west side is more susceptible to demonic forces than the east side. We'll explain that al pi Kabbalah. We're going to be learning about stepping over a felled palm tree. Various visual descriptions of certain demons. We will also be learning in Daf Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Beis that miserliness begets poverty. Sloppiness, filth, begets poverty. Various practices that can attract, God forbid, poverty. And from that, we can also understand the opposite. And then we will conclude, God willing, we should get that far today, about learning about various behaviors that bring about anxiety and much, much more. It's like a wow daf. So let us start on Daf Kuf Yud Amud Beis. Again, we are still learning about zugos. So if a person, let's speak about drinking wine or beverages, a person drank two, even, and the worst is two, so now they have to get out of the two and they have to go to the three. But if the third item is completely unlike, then it's not going to combine. So says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, that kol hamazug, all mixed beverages. So if you have wine, which is a mixed beverage, and you have something else that you had water added to it, another mixed beverage, even if they have different names, they have different properties, by the very fact that they are both mixed, therefore, mitzvah, they combine, and if you had two, and then you had a third, then you're out of the danger of zugos. However, Kuf Yud Aleph, chutz v'namayim, if you have water itself, now how would water be a mixed beverage? So as we'll see in a moment, if a person had hot water and they added to it, they diluted it with cold water, or the opposite, you had cold water and you mixed it with hot water, that is not called a mixed beverage. Yeah, if you mixed hot and cold, but it's water. So if a person, let's say, were to have 2 cups of wine and then they would drink a cup of water, then they're not out of the danger of zugos. However, Rabbi Yochanan disagrees with this. And he holds that even water, if water was mixed, as we'll explicitly speak out, then water is also considered a mazug, a mixed beverage, and it will combine, taking the person away from zugos. However, as the Gemara will clarify, that Amar Rav Papa, that Loy Amaran, that Rabbi Yochanan only said that even mayim is considered a mixed beverage, if you indeed mixed hot into cold, or kirire, logay chamime, cold into hot. But if you had initially 2 cups of hot water, and then you mix them together, or even though they began in different cups, that's not called a mixed beverage. That's called just water. And even Rabbi Yochanan will agree that if a person, let's say, had 2 cups of beer, and then they'll have that cup of water, 2 cups of wine, 2 cups of orange juice, then the person is still connected to zugos, because this is not called the third cup, because it is unlike that which was consumed previously. 4 lines from the top of the Amid. Now we will start learning about other actions which could expose a person to harm at the hand of demons. The following 4 things, on whoever engages in them. His blood is upon his own head. In other words, he's liable to pay for his life, and it's going to be his fault, because he exposed himself to various demonic forces, and some of them are based on the premise And as we will learn, Chevra, at the end of Daf Kuf Yud Beis, that as time went on, as history was passing, and especially Al Pi Chasidis, that Achshir Dora is not Bitmiya, that because of the additional Torah and mitzvahs that every generation adds to the world, our misbehaviors are temporary. We have to do tshuva for them. But Torah is eternal. So yes, we are progressively elevating the world. And the more of the world that we elevate, that we connect to Hashem Echad, automatically the more these demonic forces are disempowered. They lose their koyach. So initially they had more dominion, but as time went on, they were confined. As we'll see again, and we'll see this at the end of Kuf Yud Beis, aside of many milestone events as we have as Hasidim, that the Baal Shem Tov further limited the power of demons to interact with human beings. But even over here, they were not allowed, demons already in the times of Chazal, were not allowed to interact or to live in areas where people use, in a habitated area. So they have to hang out in an uninhabited area. But the downside of that is that we may not intrude in their limited territory. So for example, if a person is going to relieve oneself in between a palm tree and a wall, and we'll see it's between a palm tree and a wall in which there's very little space. Demons hang out in the dark. The moment you bring light to something, you weaken the demonic force, right? How similar is this, let's say, to modern day psychology? We understand these concepts. So if you have a very dark location and you are going there, then they'll be upset with you. You're invading their territory. Similarly, if a person is walking in between two palm trees, and we'll see, we're speaking about areas that are regularly not frequented by people, not traveled by people, and it's dark and there is shade there. So that is their location. Don't invade their territory. A third, drinking borrowed water. These are fascinating concepts. The Gemara will clarify each one a bit more. And the fourth is a person who passes over spilled water. Each one will be clarified. And the spilled water is even if it was his wife that spilled the water in front of him, passing over it in a certain way makes a person susceptible to demonic forces. And now the Gemara will go through each one of the four. Hanifna, right, the first white line. Hanifna bein dekel lekoisol, relieving oneself between a palm tree and the wall is something that's dangerous. Lo yamoran ela the leis lei arba amis. That's only if in between the palm tree and the wall there is less than 4 cubits. So if you go into that area, there's no room for you and them, right? You're cornering them. But if it's a larger area defined by 4 cubits or more leis lanba, then there's no issue. And likewise, also, it's only if there isn't any other path available. So again, that's the only place they have to be. But if there's another path, again, there's no issue. Guys, we have something interesting similar in Sefer Hasidim. Many people are familiar with it, that if you are remodeling your home and you are completely closing off a window or a doorway, then you should leave a little hole. Remember that? You have to leave a little hole, because since this was their pathway, see, demons are invisible, but they can't walk through a wall, whatever that means. So don't completely take away a pathway that they were using. They'll be upset at you. And many people are annoyed with that. Number 2, the second thing that was mentioned by the Shlakish, guys, 3 lines into the wide lines, however, mentioned the column, a person is walking through 2 palm trees. That's something that one should not do. That's only if there isn't a public thoroughfare that intersects between the palm trees. Kaminik here in LA. How many beautiful streets do you have? Palm trees on this side, palm trees on the other side, and there is no issue at all. If anyways there is a public thoroughfare that's going through, then leis lanba. And as the Rashbam writes 2 lines under the Gemara, abol pas kesinu the shchicherabim. If anyways many people are hanging out there using that area, leis le the shus lahazik. They have no more permission, right, to hurt, to damage. They don't have permission to steal from the public. They were confined in areas that are uninhabited, that are unused. And if those areas are dark and they're little, they're narrow, that is exactly where we should refrain of going to. Number 3, drinking borrowed water. What does that mean? It's very interesting. We're only speaking about a minor who borrowed water. See, demons, they need to quench their thirst. Where did we have this? Also, we quoted the story of Ashmedai, right? In Mishnah in the beginning. So how did Ben Yehoyada trick Ashmedai? That he had water, so he exchanged the water for wine. So whatever that means. So they need to drink water. Now, they're normally not allowed to go and to take water that we use. But if there's a minor, and the minor doesn't even own the water, if a minor borrowed water, that is the water that they drink from. So we should stay away from that. Aval Gadol, but if there's an adult that owns water, there's no fear that the demons need that water for their thirst, and they'll be upset or they'll be angered if we'll take that water for ourselves. Furthermore, even if it's a minor that borrowed water, when do we say that there's a certain, you have to be afraid, you have to be careful not to consume that water? Only if the minor is in a location where there isn't available water. That's how we teach. Not that there are few people there, is that he's in a field where there isn't other options for the demons. That's the only water they have. But if you are in a city, the shchichai, where water is available, at least that's the way it should be, and furthermore, it's only water, but wine, or v'shichra, or beer, Remember, when I was in Cheder, my Malamed, Rabbi Strauss, Abel Zachac was so medagdik. Every time he drank water, he would pour out a little bit of water. This is connected to what we're learning right now. Now, just to know, many people don't notice it because he showed me how to do it in a very modest way. So some people, they take their cup and they give a pour out. He used to swivel the water around and keep his finger by the edge until a drop of water touched his finger, so he would remove a drop of water from the cup. Many people are knowing to do that, all connected to PESACHIM Daf Kuf Yud Aleph. Coffee, Chavre, there's no fear with coffee. Demons don't like coffee. Weiter. And at least so we hope. Guys, this is mamish. It's a daf. It's an esoteric daf that you won't find any other place. We're not allowed to pass over spilled water. Vas meintus clarifies the Gemara, limits the Gemara. It's only if we did not spread earth over it. So water spilled out and it's laying on the ground. So we should not go over it. And or not, it's covered with earth. Nor no one spit in there. It means if you would spit in it, they would become repulsed with it, they would leave. If you covered it with some earth, or it's not both. It's either or. Furthermore, that it's still dangerous to walk over spilled water. That sun did not shine on that spilled water. See, whenever there's light, there's no demons. They live in the dark. Or nor did you not have 60 steps go over it. So even if it was dark, 160 steps, that means 30 people, however you judge it. 60 steps walked over it, then they were already chased away. So those first 60 people were in trouble, but not you. But if the sun shined on that spilled water, or 60 steps already walked over the water, then and further, passing over is when you're not on a horse. So it's only dangerous for you. It's in the dark. And the water was not covered over and no one spit into it and the sun didn't shine in it. But that's only when you're not riding a horse. Nor are you wearing shoes. But if you're riding on a horse, so the horse is going over the water, but it's not you, it's you on the horse over the water, or the sayim misane, or if you're wearing shoes, lace long bomb. And on all of the above, so we had these 4 dangerous activities. And as we already began in the sugya, that demonic forces, we're going from bad to worse. opens us up to becoming more susceptible to sorcery, to witchcraft, to black magic. And then from that, God forbid, then our person is vulnerable to fall into Avodah Zarah. That's how it works. And also, as we learned yesterday, that there is, the Zugos, how it connects to Shedim, and then there's Zugos, how it connects to Kishuv. So when we limited Shedim with Zugos, we had the story noch, that when you had the ex-wife that was doing Kishuv, that person was susceptible. So we are limiting all of these four by saying that if you don't follow all of the limited application, then you're not vulnerable to demonic forces. True. That's if the fear is only from Shedim. But if there's an additional fear of Kishuv, still Chayshinon. Whether Kol Hani only goes on the passing over spilled water, there's different ways of learning the Gemara. Whether this is a statement going on all of the four. And the Raya is a proof, because Kehahu says like Kehahu Gavra, that he was riding on a horse and he was wearing shoes. However, he, with the horse, went over the spilled water. So what happened? He was affected, right? V'gamoid misane, his shoes shrank. V'tzavu kare, and his feet shriveled up. Just imagine that. So he went from a size 10 to a size 5. Why? Because Kishuv was being done on him, and because of him walking over spilled water, even though he was on a horse, even though he was wearing shoes, he was still vulnerable. He exposed himself to these dark forces. Just to repeat again, the Tosfos Chevre and Yuma, it's good to look in it. Tosfos Yuma Daf Ayin Zayin Mabez. There's one Tosfos, and Tosfos says already in his time over there in France, that in these Malchiyos, and L'choid again, Al Pi Chasidus, it has to do with the fact that so much Torah was learned in Europe by then. He says that we're not chayish to Zugais. Again, like we learned yesterday, there's different levels. There's being makbet, there's being chayish. It's part of Torah. It's part of Torah. But all as time goes on, and specifically because of our understanding and integration, da'as in Hashem Echad, we are less and less vulnerable to all of these negative koiches. So for example, the Rambam, right, the famous Rambam in Periscope Mishnah, he says that there are no demons and there is no kishuv, and everyone attacks the Rambam. How can it be when Chazal is filled with it? And that's the Nakuda. The Nakuda is that the more a Yid is connected to Torah, and specifically halacha, as we mentioned, because halacha is what is the root that counters. It's the Kisra Shel Torah. It counters this two-sideness. It's clear, black and white in halacha. So a Yid like the Rambam, for him, he never saw a demon. They were not able to enter his universe. Okay. Tana Rabbana.
Rabbi, did the Rambam hold like Tosafos, or does the Rambam say there never were demons?
The way we understand the Rambam is that if you are like the Rambam, for the people like the Rambam, they cannot be demons.
Uh-huh.
It's really connected to Chazal. That in other words, if we don't expose ourselves to certain behaviors, if we don't open ourselves up to certain ideas, then they don't live in our world. They're somewhere out there. They're not in Olam Haza. It depends on what world you live. We can have two people living on the same block, but they're living in different worlds. For Jews like the Rambam, they don't exist. That's the way we understand the Rambam. Tana Rabbanan, we learned in the Braisa. Shloisha, this is fascinating. Ein mematzin. There are three that one should not cause to pass in between. So there are two men, and the following three, we should make an effort that these three should not pass in between two men. And similarly, v'loy mismatzin, nor should one pass in between them. What are we talking about? The Elohein, Kelev. So in both ways, that means if there are two people walking, we should make an effort that a dog should not walk in between two men. And here, we should not walk in between two dogs. A palm tree, v'ha'isha, and a woman. And v'yesh oimrim af ha'chazir, a pig, both ways. V'yesh oimrim af ha'nachish. And v'i mematzin maitakante. So what happens if two people are walking, let's say, and a dog walks in between them? What should they do? So I'm enough papa. That here we have incantations. And yeah, there's a whole topic. Can you use psukim for remedy? No. But when it comes to protection from something that didn't yet happen, we had the sugya ready. Right before we go to sleep, we say the Shema. Before we go to sleep, we say many psukim to protect us from demonic forces. That's not called using Torah to heal oneself, because it's preventative medicine. So here we have to open
Rabbi,
up. Yes.
Rabbi, I have 2 dogs and I walk them every day. One's on my right hand, one's on my left hand.
Well, don't look at it that way. Don't look at it that way. You're not walking in between them. That dog is walking near the wall to the right. The other dog is to the left. It's like we learned yesterday, when you drink, did you drink 2 cups or 3 cups? You drink 1 and 1. All of these things are not the halacha the way the 613 mitzvahs, evolved into halacha. These are a little bit esoteric. And if you can be cautious, or Baruch, review these verses, and you're going to continuously say the psukim, and then you're for sure good to go. What psukim is it? Niftach bekeil, then nafsik bekeil. So the Rashbam brings over here psukim. It's fascinating. Dafka said by Bilam. See, it's connected to people that were connected to the dark arts. And there are 2 psukim really. Keil moitziam imitzrayim vigoimed kiloi nachash biyakov ad mapo al keil. So that these psukim, you say that, you're good. Baruch, I have another response to you in a second. I want to go back to my Rab Shlomo Strauss. He gave me another eitzah. Inami niftach beloi v'nafsik benoi. Other psukim, and the Rashbam brings 6 lines under the Gemara. Also from Bilam, from Bali. It says loi ish keil v'yechazev ad v'loi yikimena. Actually, this verse doesn't end with the word v'loi, but it's the second to last word. Now, hani beitrei. There were once 2 men between whom a menstruating woman walked, and this makes them vulnerable again to some dark forces. And furthermore, if this woman was in the beginning of her cycle, then it can mamish kill one of them. Now, Tosfos says, whoa. If she'll practice black magic, just her walking in between, right? And the same thing goes with the dogs, means you're vulnerable. But Baruch, if there's no one in your house practicing black magic, then you're good. I want to say like this, that this not the men and the women. So, I remember in Cheder, so he says, whenever you're walking on the street, guys, I think I was 10 years old, and you're walking in between 2 women, grab onto your tzitzis from your talus cotton. That was his eitzah. He read it somewhere. Okay. Now, so maybe with your dog, Baruch, you get a nice talus, cut and wear a talus, and you're good to go. Now, if she's at the end of her cycle, then again, then if she'll try to practice black magic, so the koyach she will have will be to cause these 2 guys to fight. And matakante, and what's the solution? Again, so we're learning, so it's an incantation, it's psukim, preventative. The same psukim that he quoted, Keil moitziam imitzrayim kilei nachash b'Yakov until mapo al keil. Gavaldik. There were 2 women. The Yosem Parshas Rachim, that they were on a road in an intersection. The Shvila, one woman was on one side of the road, and the Chad and another woman was beidach on the other side of the road. And they're looking at each other. Then you should know, why they're looking at each other. They're trying to they're going to do kishuv on people that walk in between them. So, maitakante, what's the remedy? If you have another road, then go on the other road. But if there's no other road, so if you have another person with you, then hold on to another man's hand, and pass through these 2 women. In other words, that 2 people together, we protect each other. Beruchnius. Right, Tzvei nefesh alikiyas against 1 nefesh abahamis. And if there isn't another person, so neima hachi, this is what you should say. And it's fascinating. We have this in many times, that one of the ways to deal with demons is calling them out by their name. Right, if you want to get rid of the demon in the closet, you have to deal with it. You have to converse with it. And here are the names. Nemahachi, Ageres, Azlas, Asya, Belusia. These are names of demons. And you tell them that Miskatla Bechei Kavol, that all of these demons had already been killed with a crossbow. So you confront them. You exist, but you have been killed, and you have no power over me. Weiter. Hi man the paga beitza. If a man is going to encounter a woman, beidna the solka mitfilas mitzvah, when she leaves the mikvah, she went to the mikvah to remove the status of nida from her. So encountering a woman right away is not good. If the man, this is not his wife, this is another man. If the man that encountered her will have a relation with his wife first, then the spirit of immorality will possess him. Similarly, if she will have a relation with her husband first, then a spirit of morality will possess her. And by the way, that's the reason why when women go to the mikveh today, you have a balanit, you have a mikveh lady. One of the things she does is that she slightly touches the woman that leaves the mikveh. So now a woman was the first one who encountered them.
Rabbi, what's morality? Sorry.
Immorality is nus. It is, in other words, it don't make sense. You see a woman leaving the mikveh. Now, I want you, I'll read a few words further, and then we're going to classify this and limit this. Maita kante, again, what should a person do if he encountered a woman that left the mikveh? So, lema hachi, maita rabi, psukim, incantations, pasuk tilam kuf zayin, that shoifech buz aladivim, that Hashem pours scorn upon nobles. In other words, you're humbling yourself. You can be a big noble man when you see a woman leaving the mikveh. It's gonna, you're gonna start thinking about her. And God will make them wander in a pathless wasteland. You're telling yourself, be careful with what you're thinking about. Now, guys, a few things. Many Rishonim say, I want to go to Rabbi Zajac. Before Rabbi Zajac. First of all, many people say that this is only referring to, in those days, the mikveh was the river. So when a woman left the Tefillas mikveh, means someone encountered her unclothed. So then that's where you have to be very careful not to think about her, and you're saying a pasuk to yourself that you can be the greatest noble person, right? Eina petrupas la royes, control your thoughts. But the kasha that Danny asked is that we have in Brachas Daf Chaf, we have in Bava Metzia Pei Dalet, right? That Rabbi Zajac and others, they would sit by the entrance of the mikveh. So women should look at them, and they should have beautiful children like them, that we know from Yaakov Avinu, that what you have in your mind, and a Midrash with Rabbi Akiva, v'chulei. So many Rishonim say Gavaldik. They bring here in Bava Kama Daf Kuf Yud Zayin, we learned that Rabbi Zajac had very long eyelashes. Actually, they needed to have the silver keli to lift his eyelashes. And which means that Rabbi Zajac was unable to see naturally. His eyes were covered. So that was no issue. So he's sitting over there by the entrance of the mikveh. He's not seeing anyone. He doesn't know who he's encountering. The women look at him to see the face of a tzaddik. They say that's different. Especially if we're speaking about here, if we understand the Gemara speaking about you encountered a woman when she was the solka, when she went out of the tefillah, which means that she was unclothed. Weiter. Rabbi Yitzchak Meidich Sif. Oh, Danny loves reading this pasuk in English. That gam ki elech begates amavas, even when a person is walking in the valley of the shadow of the death, lo yirara, no harm will befall you because you are with me. You have to know how to read it. Oh, so what was the pshat? Where is the shadow of the valley of the death? Now we're going to see what it is. A person sleeping in the shade of a single palm tree, because single palm tree means that there isn't that much shade. There's a little bit of shade. So let the demon have a place where to live. Don't suffocate the demon. Don't intrude in the space of the demon. So if a person sleeps over there, the demon will be upset. Or, if a person will sleep in the shade of the moon. And the Rashbam adds, it's not only that, the Rashbam 5 lines before the bottom of the Amid. If a person is going at night and the moon is shining, now the moonlight also disturbs the demons. They need dark, they need real dark. So there's a little wall and there's a little bit shade. So if a person who's walking at night, he walks b'tzeilak solim, shederech hashedim lahalach balaylo. That is where you're walking in the valley of the shadow of the death, because the demons are angry with you and they're going to try to hurt you. Says the Gemara, when is there a danger to sleep in the shade of a single palm tree? Only if there isn't a neighboring palm tree whose shades touch one the other. Because they're not going to go into the light. But if they're hanging out in this shade and there is a neighboring palm tree, and they can go over to that shade without going into the light, then even if you go under this, you are leaving them where to go. You're not cornering them. But if there's another palm tree and the shade of one is touching the other, then leislam ba. It's not true. We learned in the Braysa, if you are sleeping in the shade of a single palm tree in your chutzir, we'll see soon what the chutzir is. So again, here we have again the Rashbam saying chutzir, meaning that it's in a relatively small place. So that's all the space there is. So in a narrow place and there's only a little bit of shade, that is where it's dangerous. Or sleeping in the shade of the moon, you're so open to being hurt by demons that if something happens, it's your own fault. Hold on, as we just learned, if it's in the shade of a tree that has no neighboring shades, so then why b'chatzir? We did not differentiate between Rabbi Zajac did not make such a differentiation. That in a chatzir, that it's still dangerous. So don't tell me that whenever one shade goes into the other, it depends on this other factor. Are you in a big place or are you in a narrow place? When you are to begin with in a very confined place, like we had on top of the Amid by the Shlakish, right? Hanifna bein dekel koisel, then be careful. If it's a narrow place and there's shade there, then dreizech nish dartem. Furthermore, the last line of the Amid, what type of shade of the moon is dangerous? Ela b'marava. B'marava means that the moon is in the east. The moon is in the east, which is which is at the end of the month, like the Rashbam says. So if the moon is in the east and there's a wall, so then the shade will be in the west. That shade is dangerous. Abal b'mi din chasa. But when the shade is in the east, then leislan ba. I can say like this, that we have in the directions that the Sefer Yetzirah attributes to the spheres. So b'chlal by Yidden, we don't put north in the front. We have east in the front. Right to the right is south, and to the left is north. That's Chesed is to the right, and Gevura is to the north. And then we have east to the front and west to the back. So again, front, even though there's no light there, but it's facing front. Demons cannot be there. Behind you, in the back, they get you when they're hidden. The moment you come, like we explained in the beginning, that it is the denial of the existence of evil. It's the denial of the existence of demons that makes a person more vulnerable. It's not that just knowing they're there means you're completely scot-free, but at least you acknowledge them. We all have demons. Let's acknowledge our demons and understand them a little bit. Find out their names. What do they look like? All of that doesn't resolve it, but it makes them smaller, makes them less dangerous. That's Kuf Yud Aleph Amid Beis. Hi man de mafani agirda de dikla. A person who's relieving oneself on the stump of a palm tree. So a palm tree was cut down, there's a stump, a person relieves oneself. So he should know these are different types of, again, we're learning esoteric. A person, God forbid, could be possessed by a ruach of palgam. Many people say palgam means of paralysis. So one should not.
Why so much emphasis on palm trees?
It's interesting. Kevin, I was thinking about it. First of all, we're going to have soon in the Gemara all different types of trees. Shade is lav dafka from palm trees. That Rashbam says even from a wall. But could be there's something with a palm tree, something unique. We'll see that every tree it has a different type of demon. You know, ki ha'adam eitz asada, like every nation have their own demons. Every group has their own demons. Every trees have their own demons. And maybe it was common also in Babel. One who leans his head upon a stump of a palm tree. Then God forbid a person can be possessed with tzirada spirit. Now tzirada, there's a big machlokes what that means. Sounds from many Rishonim, which is what we call Ball's palsy, right? When part of the face, the muscles become weakened. It looks like it can even look like a stroke. It's not a stroke. It's that there's some sort of there's half of a tree, there's a stump of a tree, you're leaning your head on it. So part of the face becomes, God forbid, disformed, disfigured. Haiman the Pasadikle, a person who steps over a felled palm tree. Oh, that's the worst. So mikdal, if the tree was chopped down, then katal, then the person can die. If the tree was uprooted, then miyakerumayis, then the person will be uprooted and die. So there's being killed and there's being uprooted. Depends what happened to the tree. That's only if you did not step on it. You passed over it. It's good to know. But if you step on it, then to worry about. Amazing. There are 5 types of shades. Now, as we will see in our girsa, look inside the Misreidas Hashatz. He says, now, there's different girsas. So I know we read the word chamisha, but according to the version of our Gemara, we're going to speak about, that was for Kevan, 4 types of shades connected to different trees. Tula, the dikla, yichida, there is the shade of an isolated palm tree. That's key. Then you have tula, the chanda, you have a shade of a lot tree. Oh, it's a beautiful tree. You Google them. Beautiful. It's trees that have a lot of shade, they have a lot of leaves. Tula de pircha, the shade of a caper bush. And here in our version, now we're looking at the final, which is the 4th. Tula de zardasa, the shade of a sorb tree. Ikadamri, other people add, no, there's other demons connected to other shades. Aftula de arba, there's the shade of a boat. Where's Eli? The tula de arvasan, there's the shade of a willow tree. In other words, that in their shade, there is evil lurking. Be careful. Klal the mills. This is the rule. Called the nafish anpei, whichever tree has many branches, abundant branches, you got to be careful. Then kashe tuli, then its shade is more harmful because all of the demons are there. The chol de kashe silve, another rule. If the wood of the tree is harmful, which means if the wood of the tree has thorns, then also in that shade, the demons there are a bit more dangerous. Kashe tuli, with one exception, levad. And this is the name of a tree, Mikru Misha. Mikru Misha is a service tree upon which sorb apples grow. That tree, Afal Gav de Kashe Silva, even though the wood has thorns in it, it's a very, it's a hard wood. Nevertheless, like Kasha Tule, there's no danger there. And we know that because we overheard how one demon was telling the other. The Amr Allah Shida Libra, one demon, the mother demon told the baby demon, Erzachain, Pirche Nafshech Mikru Misha, fly away. Don't hang out under this service tree because the EU, who the katalavoch, because it killed your father. So the tree itself expels demons. It killed your father. The katal of the day, it might kill you. So they don't like that tree. So wherever they do not like going, that's exactly where it is safer for us to go. Amar Ravashi, the first wide line says Ravashi, Chazina L'Rav Kahana. I noticed. Kevan mamash for you, not only those 4 trees or others or the boat or the willow tree. No, I noticed that Rav Kahana, the Parish Mikula Tuli, never hung out in the shade of any tree. What did we learn on Kuf Yud? What did we learn yesterday? Adam Chashav Shiny, right? That the mazikin are moisid nefesh to her to Adam Chashav. So the greater the person, the greater the demon, and the more you have to be afraid of it. Weiter. Bei Pirchei Ruchei, the demons that lurk in the shade of a caper bush, now we're starting to give names to them, and knowing their names is a way of limiting them. So they're called Ruach. So when you hear about a spirit, spirits normally hang out by caper bushes shades. The Beizardasa, sorb trees, we're speaking about the demons that are lurking in the shade of sorb breach. They're called Sheda. That's the demon. The Vei Igre, demons that are lurking on rooftops, all right, they are called Rishpei. And the Gemara wants to know Lamainaf Kamina, what their name is. So the Gemara answers Likemeya, that if you're writing an amulet, and the amulet is to protect you from a demon, you have to write the name of the demon in the amulet for it to be effective. I can only heal my madness if I understand it better. We got to know our demons. The Bei Parche, also to know that we mentioned before that the demons by the caper trees, They are they are demons without eyes. That these demons don't have eyes. You can run away from it. They're not that powerful because they can't catch you. They don't know where you're running. And indeed, a story. There was a time that one of the Talmidei Chachamim, the young yeshiva students, went he went to relieve himself. Again, that was the beginning of Reish Lakish. So he went into the shady place, in the shade of caper bushes. And there were demons there. He heard that the demons are coming to get him. So he ran away. Now the demons went chasing him, but they're blind. So listen to what happened to them. Ki Ozle, when the demon went to try to get this Surah Midrabanan, Chavke means he hugged the tree huggers, but it means that he tripped over a tree, he chapped himself. Chavke ledikla, and the moment he hugged the palm tree, so tzavach dikro pakahi, there was like an interchange between the demon and the tree. So all of the moisture of the tree went into the demon. So the tree shriveled and the demon exploded. Shade and busters. So that's just, they're not that dangerous. They're not that dangerous if they don't have eyes. Weiter. Now we're gonna go with the Gra that says that the word parcha should not be here. There's no girsa. Weiter. The Beizardasa, the demons that hang out, that lurk in the shade of a sorb tree, they're called shade. You should know that if you have a sorb tree that's near a city, so the shadim cannot be in the city. So they go to the closest shades, which means that the shady areas near a city have a lot of demons in them because all of the shade of the whole city go there. They're lazy. They don't want to go that far. You should know there's no less than 60 demons. How great is that? Maybe that's connected to the 60 steps we learned on Amud Aleph. If you're writing an amulet, don't write an amulet to protect yourself from one demon. Write an amulet to protect yourself from 60 of them. It's all connected to this. By Shlomo HaMelech. There was a watchman. I mean, that was his job. He was a watchman. So never he stood in the shade of a sorb tree. What happened to him? 60 demons enter him. They possess you. That we all know. We have our demons. And Vistakin was in danger. So also so he went to a young yeshiva student, and today we go to a psychologist. There he went to a kameya. He'll write an amulet that will free him from these demons. But this Surah Midrabanan de Loyada, he didn't know what we just learned, that the Zardas or the Shit and Shidei, that there are 60 demons. So he wasn't possessed by one demon. He is possessed by 60. So from his lack of knowledge, he wrote an amulet, but only for one. So the other 59 were good. So Shama, he heard this person that was possessed, this watchman heard the talu chinga, that they hung up, they took out, the chinga is a musical instrument, bigave. They hung up and they took out the musical instrument either in the tree or in the person, and they were singing. They were happy that the kameya was so ineffective. And they said they were mocking the guy who wrote the kameya. They are mockers, Shadim. That Sudrei Damar, Sudrei is the special fedora hat that Fruma people wear. It's a sign of, you should be learned. So he says this fedora, the Chitzur Midrabanan, Badikabe, we examined him. He's not only not worthy to wear the special fedora hat, he doesn't even know how to read the bracha you make in the morning of Oita Yisrael B'Sifara. Badikna Be'Bamar.
It's the Hamburg hat, Rabbi.
The Hamburg hat, I stand corrected. The Hamburg hat, the Chashuva hat, exactly. Is the Loyada Baruch. Rashbam says he doesn't even know how to read the Baruch. He doesn't know Ivra. Like he's trying to dabble in the esoteric. If I stayed garnished in this, because he should have written a kameya mentioning 60 demons. And indeed, also Umid Rabbanan. So this guy Nebuch is possessed by demons. So he went to someone else. The Yada, the Zardas Ashit and Sheidahava, this other person, he was a better demon buster, that he knew that there are 60 demons in there. So Kasav Kameya Lishit and Shidei, so he wrote a Kameya that's going to counter all 60 of them. And indeed, Shammai was heard the Ka'amani that the Sheidim were telling each other, whoops, that's it, we're done. We're moving out. Let's gather our stuff and go on to someone else. Weiter, we have in Parshas Hazinu, in the Chumash, the mention of a demon called Ketev Meridi. So says the Gemara, I want you to know that today, Kitvei Aved, there are two Ketev Meridi demons. Chav Mekame Tihara, one Ketev Meridi, he's the one that's lurking before noon. There's the morning demon and the afternoon demon. And V'cham Mibosek Tihara, one afternoon. The demon that has koyach, and that we are more vulnerable to before tihara, before noon. Ketev Meridi Shemoy. The name is Ketev Meridi. So now we're having a name and we're having a visual. Umechazi, and what does he look like? Bekada de kamcha. He looks like a jug of kutach, v'hadar beibachasha, that has in it a mixing spoon. So when you're thinking about a demon and you're having, again, this creature with a face, with horns, no, it's a bowl with a whirling spoon. Again, kutach might be, kutach is a very strong, they found it tasty, but it was probably not that healthy. I'm possessed. I can't stop eating the potato chips. It looked like a kutach bowl with a temptation, with the spoon is turning like, taste of me a bit more. The Basar Tihara, the Ketev Meridi demon that is more active in the afternoon. So he's already called Ketev Yoshud Tzoharayim Shemai. And what does he look like? Umechaze, he looks like Bekana, he looks like the horns of a goat, not like a goat, he looks like the horns of the goat. Father Bekanafaya, that has something like a sieve that's around the horns. That is what it looks like. It's good to know. So when you meet that, at least you know the name of the demon. Abaye was once going along. And Rav Papa meaning Rav Papa was walking to Abaye's right. Rabbi Yeshua was walking Mismale to Abaye's left. And Chazye, now that we know what we're looking for. So Abaye noticed who Ketev Meridi the Asala Ape the Smale. He noticed the demon, and it was going towards his left. Who was standing to his left? Rabbi Yeshua. So what did Abaye do? Ahadra l'Rav Papa l'smale u'l'Rafuna b'Reb Yeshua l'yamine. He changed places. He put Rav Papa to his left. Now that protected Rafuna b'Reb Yeshua, but that wasn't that fun for Rav Papa. So Amalei Rav Papa to Abaye, what Anna Maishna d'Loi Chashashli, what you're not concerned about me. You're protecting him with me. So Amalei, to which Abaye tells Rav Papa, you have nothing to worry about. At Shato Kayantloch. Times are good for you. Gavaldik. The Rashbam writes 5 lines before the bottom of the Amid. Osher Ata, you're wealthy, which means you have good mazel. If you have good mazel, then you won't get damaged. It's like Begashmis, if you have a good immune system, then you're not that susceptible to illness. In other words, someone who has a good mazel, or a pi chasidus, mazel is connected to the level of chaya. A person who's connected to their part of the neshama, that's chaya, that in itself removes them so far from demons and kolchchen from kishuv and kolchchen from avodah zarah that they're a different universe. They won't have any koyach over you. Back inside the Gemara, mechad betamuz at shitzar bey, from the 1st of Tammuz, this is more in Ketev Meridi, until the 16th of Tammuz, shchichi, that is where they're more prevalent. Actually, we have Midrashim that have a different version. There it says that from the 17th of Tammuz until Tisha B'Av, the Ketev Meridi is prevalent. And that is in the Midrash explaining why we take more precautions with our behavior during the 3 weeks. What demon are we protecting ourselves from Ketev Meridi? But that's not the Girsa and Talmud Bavli. Here it is from the 1st until the 16th. Mekan ve'elach, safek shchichi, safek lo shchichi. And you should know, when it is found, umishtakhe, you can find them betula the chatzba, in the shadows. Chatzba, guys, are that grass that Yeshua planted. They're grass that their roots go straight down. So when you wanted to put up a marker to show where my property ends and when your property begins, that is the type of grass that they would plant in the ground. But interestingly, unlike everything we learned until now, that the more the shade, the more the demons hang out there. These demons only hang out if there's very little shade. Little demons. So they only hang out in the shade of chatzba grass, only delay chatzav ganmida, that's not an am at all. Little short shade, that's where they go. Or ubetula, in any shade that safro panya, shade that you have in the morning, shade that you have at the end of the day, if and only when do they have a garmida that doesn't have the height of an amo. So the bigger the shade, right? Even maybe they're there, but they take up less space, less danger. Only a little bit of shade. That's if they're shchiach, that's the ket of medidi. Little demon lach. The iked and the most of these ket of medidi demons, where do they hang out? The tule in the shade, right? They lurk in the shadows. The beisakise of a latrine. Says the Gemara Amar Rabbi Yosef Hanetras Mile. The following three practices. Yohiv Araboina, Rashbam says, will bring blindness, Linahoida, and it's going to replace a person's sight. Stay away from it. Number one, whoever combs his hair when the hair is dry. Don't do that. Number two, if you have a barrel and there is wine or beverage dripping, drip, 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 and you're drinking out of the drip, drip, that can bring about blindness. And number three, umam the soya misane ademiyosne kare, and a person who puts on his shoes while his feet are still wet. Put on your shoes when your feet are dry. Dry them well in the mikveh. Okay. Just to know, B'chlal, I want to go back to what Baruch mentioned before about dogs, that there is a concept of shomer pesoyim Hashem, that when people don't know of all these things and they're not so careful about it, that God protects the fools. A lot of that is said regarding these topics. But now that we're learning it, it's good to know it. Next, Toloi bebeisa, if a person suspends bread in a basket in one's home, kashela aniyusa, it can bring about poverty. Wow. In other words, bread should be on something that's grounded. Suspended means that the bracha is not coming all the way lamata masara tvachim. Interesting. Kida amar inshi, like people say, that tola, silta, if you suspended your bread basket, if it's not grounded, then tola mezoina, you suspended your sustenance. God forbid. This concept of not suspending is only when it comes to bread, only by rifta. But avo bisra, but by meat, or kavare, or fish, leis lanba. Because the symbol of parnos is bread. And orchu, that's the way people hang the meat and people hang fish. Weiter. Parabebe say crumbs. No. Pari says that ashba mursan. Mursan means bread of inferior quality. And in other words, if there's a person that can afford better bread, and they, because they are miserly, they buy cheaper bread, miserliness, huh? It means bran, but it means a whole wheat. That's what bran is. But we're speaking about a bread that's considered inferior, that is cheaper. The person can afford better bread, but the person, because the person is a kamtzana, a miser, they buy cheaper bread. That in itself brings about poverty. That's the word. That miserliness begets poverty.
So what if the bread, the whole wheat bread is more expensive? Does it mean
if the whole wheat, so buying whole wheat bread will make you wealthy? Bread the best. Steak, nishkafelach, you can be a bissel skafia. Neshoira bebe, so crumbs in your house. That we had in Chulin, kashalana yusam, especially if you are disrespectful with the crumbs, especially if you step on the crumbs. We give a certain amount of respect to bread. Now let's go back. Belela Shabbosos, Friday nights, Belela Devis, Tuesday nights, the night going into Wednesday, that is where Sharomazik Love, that is where demons lurk over breadcrumbs. And guys, again, at the end of Daf Kuf Yud Beis, originally demons were given more koyach to hang out always. But as their koyach is weakened through the generational avodah of people, bringing more of divine light into the world, so then their time and place is more limited, right? We're learning now space. It's about the shade and the shadow and the darkness. And bisman, the times that they can hang out is Tuesday night and Wednesday night. Guys, this is a Chumash Rashi in Parshas B'chokaisai. V'nosati geshmeicham be'itam. Guys, remember Rashi? That the rain will fall in the right time. So Rashi writes Tuesday night and Friday night, because since these are the times that mazikin are, so to say, more mitzuyin, so anyways, you should not be going outside. So it's very convenient if you're not hanging out anyway, that's when the rain should fall. But coming back over here, they have more koyach Tuesday night and Friday night. Next, Isara the Mezoine. Now we're learning about Malachim. We're learning about the ministers that God appointed to look over Mezoina, over sustenance. So the name of the Malach is Nakit. Nakit means clean. That's the name of the angel. It's very telling. The second to last line. Isara da Aniyusa, the Malach appointed over poverty. Naval Shemei, the name of the Malach is filth. The juxtaposition in the Gemara is lochayda clear. No, it's crumbs, allowing dirt. That's connected to poverty, and it's connected to demons, and it's connected to kishuv. It's connected to anything that's negative. Another interesting esoteric behavior that we should not do, that sa'a apuma de chatzba, that placing a plate over the opening of a barrel, covering the opening of the barrel, kosher le'aniyusa, it brings about poverty. You know, Chavra, when I was saying Kaddish for my father, I don't know the name of the seed. I was davening in the oil. And since when I got married, you know how we take off our jacket to put on the gartel, to put on the talis, to put on the tefillin. So I had the gartel, so to say, trapping the sleeve, my left sleeve. And he told me from the Rebbe, that's connected to this, that when you put your gartel on, you us married men, leave the sleeve outside of it. The sleeve should not be bound. It should be open. And he told me that in the positive, that I've always spoken in the positive, that this brings about more parnasa. And then he told me when you'll become wealthy, I should thank him. I'm wealthy. I'm the wealthiest Jews alive, guys. I don't know who he is to thank him. Oh, it's connected. Don't cover things. Leave things open. Let's hop another line. Man de shasi maya bitsoi. Whoever drinks water from plates, there's a plate, not like a human being in a cup. It's in a plate. You drink from there, then kashi liberoiksi, God forbid, it can bring about some sort of degeneration of the eye. It brings about a certain emachel in the eye. If a person eats cress and they don't wash their hands afterwards, again, there's an issue here of cleanliness, but something unique about cress. That will stop with the list. Will be the final one for today. Then mafchit to loss and the person will feel anxiety for 30 days. And that's the last Rashbam. In other words, fear is when I know why I'm afraid. But then there are times that we have these feelings that we don't even know why. So we're going to use anxiety is because the person opened himself or herself up to being possessed or affected by a demon. And one of the things that brings about anxiety is having cress and not washing your hands afterwards. A lot more about anxiety and much more. Wow.
Oh, yeah. Rabbi. That's the easiest daf to listen when you're on the road.
It's gewaldig, huh?
Rabbi, so do we say normally these demons are like depression and personal darkness? Is that what?
Sure, that some of it is caused. Some of it is caused, and we're not taking out the psychological component, but some of it is caused by something that has a more spiritual nature, and we should confront it on all levels. A person should go to a good psychologist. If a person has a chemical anxiety, they should take good medication, and together with that, they should learn what Chazal say. So we attack anxiety, right? Both on the tangible, on the chemical, and on the emotional. And beruchnias, there's a ruchnistic component